Hello and welcome to UKSCA Insights, an exciting initiative from the United Kingdom Strength and Conditioning Association where we delve into coaching practices, applied research, and speak to some of the best and most exciting coaches and researchers from around the globe to provide you with in-depth insights into the world of strength and conditioning. Today, I'm really pleased to welcome Jermaine McCubbine, a UKSCA accredited and a highly experienced S&C coach currently working at PSV Eindhoven with their men's first team. Jermaine, a very warm welcome to UKSCA Insights.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation to speak.
So obviously you're here to talk specifically about the article that you recently submitted to the PSCJ, which was entitled "Lower Body Resistance Training Immediately Post-Match Play in Elite Soccer Players: An Applied Narrative Perspective for Congested Fixture Schedules." So lots to get into. You could call it a slightly controversial topic, so I'm interested to really hear your thoughts and your experiences of doing it. But obviously, before we do that, it'd be really great just to get a brief overview of yourself, your journey in S&C and in research to date, please.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, that title. Um, but no, my journey started. So initially, I done my undergrad in sports therapy and injury rehabilitation. So I was going down the therapeutic physiotherapy route. That's what I originally wanted to do. But doing that alongside some personal training, I was, predominantly in the gym, and yeah, it appeased me more to be more involved in a gym environment with rehab and that side of things. Um, so then done my masters in strength and conditioning. I was fortunate enough to land a position at Brentford in 2012, 2013. I was there for 3 seasons, but then unfortunately they closed the academy, so was made redundant from there. Transitioned to Arsenal women from there, predominantly within the youth department, but then slowly was promoted up through the ranks and ended up being the lead physical performance coach for first team. A short tenure there, so it was 3 years in total before moving over and having an opportunity here in Holland. So I came just the U23s S&C coach. So back in men's football, was doing that for a year before being promoted into the lead S&C role for throughout the entire academy and our intern development program. So that was 3 years spent within the academy before being promoted to first team, where I've been for three full seasons, entering my fourth season now. Yeah.
Amazing. What a career and what a journey and sort of a steep incline up to kind of one of the Europeans' best teams. So yeah, really
Yeah,
cool.
it definitely feels like when I look back, okay, it's been a 13, 14 year journey,
Yeah, yeah.
but I still feel, yeah, it's gone in the blink of an eye. But I just want to do good work, contribute, and now actually the last 2, 3 years put uh, more information out to help other aspiring practitioners and other, solve current problems which might be existing within our industry. Hence, the paper, yeah, could be somewhat controversial for some, but some good feedback I've had so far from a lot of coaches saying that, yeah, practical application makes sense. So this chat here can hopefully answer some of the questions that I've been getting from some guys as well.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. So, I mean, let's jump straight into it, and I think most people will be familiar with this concept and idea of fixture congestion, particularly in a sport like football. But from your perspective and your experience at the highest level, which is where you are, how bad can this get? And bad, I mean, how much are the fixtures congested, and what's the overall impact on that as from a performance and a recovery perspective?
Yeah, it's very dense schedules because it's not only domestically that you have to take into consideration, it's internationally as well. So we're playing over 55 games a season. So that coupled with having an international break in September, October, November, and in March, a winter break in from yeah 21st, 22nd, 23rd December through till the 1st, 2nd of January. So your fixtures either side of that means that you're playing on average a game every 3/4 days. Now, if we play, we play Champions League. So if we have a game on a Saturday, that short turnaround, then we could be playing on a Tuesday. It could be an away game somewhere, and then we're back and we're playing Saturday again. So the reality is you play 3 games every 7 days, 3 games every 8 days, and multiple games per month. So the opportunity to be able to, run a developmental program or maintenance during this period of time is somewhat diminished. Because even though you have the opportunities to develop and maintain some strength qualities, once they go away for their international break periods, you don't get any players back. They're probably not, the trainers are more pitch based rather than any gym based, because not a lot of national teams have full programs, and the ability to be able to push is, short window for them to be able to get the technical and tactical demands across to win games without imposing any additional stress to tissue to be able to promote recovery and so on and so forth.
And obviously, the paper is around. You must have gone through a journey then with this in terms of trying to find solutions. Certainly, from your perspective, trying to get that gym loading in. And have you found that just seemed to be so difficult? And was the gym loading the thing that seemed to be removed from the schedule first, given those tight turnarounds, and hence you had to be quite creative with where you
Yeah,
find
yeah,
it.
that's exactly it. And knowing that it was, in hockey, in basketball, where there's been other, dense, congested fixture calendars, taking some lessons from what's going on over there. And of course, now we're in a big microcycle. Um, um, Sorry, not microcycle, the microdosing.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yep.
that a lot of more microdosing, because it's become more of a problem worldwide.
Yeah.
Even within the paper, you see that there's current research from Premier League down to step 4 and 100 practitioners worldwide. But once you see you're getting closer to the game, from match day -3/-4, your strength and power session starts to diminish. So it wasn't just only our own problem. It's more spread further afield.
Yeah.
So it was a case of, okay, there is no research on it. People are using practical feasibility in their own coach's eye to work around the problem, but there's been nothing put to paper to actually, you know, is it the right thing to do? Is it the wrong thing to do? What do we think? And that's what's actually quite brilliant about this piece, in my opinion, is that let's just get all the information, collate it together, and it's to make a decision one way or another, yes or no. This could have value because of X, Y, Z, or this is just a ridiculous idea. But in our environment, it was some trial and error.
Hmm.
It was a case of, when we first implemented it, everyone was just doing the same exercise. But then as time went on with our profiling, we thought, okay, how can we just use that extra little bit of nuance to individualize it a little bit further and use it and see it as a window of opportunity to develop some tissue tolerance and capacity to be able to withstand a greater stress, to ultimately maintain performance and decrease likelihood of injury.
Yeah. So from a physiological perspective then, and the kind of the rationale that you had in your head when you were researching this area and kind of thinking, I want to give it a go. Where did you go with that? What was from a physiological perspective? What were you thinking in terms of, right, well, there's a stimulus here and there's a recovery here, and I need to make this work.
Yeah, there was this. It was originally bought in from our head of performance. He had tried it at his former club, Lyon, and he had some good success with it. So it was a concept that it wasn't just a case of, yeah, we're going to just do it blanket approach. It did require some thought process, but ultimately the whole physiological underpinning was to create that repeated bout effect and that strength as a buffer. So, okay, whether you play a game the game is not linear. The only linear metric is total distance.
Mhm.
But your accel, decel, change of direction, high speed running, match density, that's all going to change. Um, but if we could give you a post match stimulus where we're increasing the ability for that muscle to create a little bit more capacity or strength, then that's just going to raise the ceiling and the threshold for what that muscle can tolerate. Um, to withstand it, yeah, like I said, from a performance maintenance perspective and to reduce our likelihood of injury. And interestingly enough, it does require more research, of course, from control groups to non-control groups, to cast further afield to see, how detailed can you go with it and what physiological responses do people get. But hopefully this paper can trigger other researchers to branch out. Like within our own environment, there's already 4 or 5 papers which can be written as a result of this one, because this one, yeah, somewhat scratches the surface a little bit to then dig deeper.
Mhm.
um but yeah, it's really, really interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, like you said, I'd seen it been done, and you kind of you see top ups have been sort of a popular thing over recent years, and the approach to top ups has then changed slightly, and you'll see maybe a little bit of gym loading, but typically that would be for non-starters or finishers.
Mm.
So in terms of your approach within your club, which individuals are being targeted here? Is it the ones that are playing more minutes because they're the ones that are going to that most likely play the next game and therefore not have that opportunity, or is it those that are playing less minutes, or is it a
It's
combination?
No, so it's a combination depending on where we sit within the microcycle. So if we have a 3-day turnover, it would be okay, your starters, even if you play, for example, 75 minutes, then you would come in and you would have reduced volume, reduced intensity, because your match load is somewhat higher.
Yeah,
um so the starters will go in and they'll do their gym whilst the guys are outside doing their high speed running top up.
yeah,
Once they've done their high speed running top up, they then come in and then have their gym part as well. So it's bolting on to get more of a significant stimulus. So then everyone can follow somewhat more of a recovery cycle to be able to play in the next. So if that was a Saturday, to then perform on the Tuesday,
yeah,
because that match day -2 session is not going to be extremely intensive, because you don't want to create too much residual fatigue going into the game to be able to perform.
yeah,
So it was a bit of push pull. But if you was on a 4-day cycle, okay, then the guys on a +1 could do their resistance based training, so they can do the high speed running top up,
yeah,
either post game. You can that can be moved onto the +1 as well, so you get more of a dense session, so to get more of a physiological benefit.
yeah. And
Yeah.
in that 4-day cycle, then when with the starters, would they still do post-match strength loading, gym loading, or when it's a 4-day cycle, were you able to find the time to do more of a traditional or more even a traditional microdose or a traditional type gym approach, or would they still jump into that
Yeah, it
post-match?
it that would depend whether we was off or not
Okay.
on the match day +1. So typically a match day -3 would be off for us. So that +1 coincides with a -3. So yes, we would do the stimulus, because then it would be a day off to then have a 2-day load in to
Yeah.
then play.
Okay.
So it made more sense in our environment to say, okay, yep, you're going to have that done. Whereas if we was in, yes, we would still do it, and then they can have more of a recovery orientated session to then be able to perform and do a modified session on the -2 to then go into the game. But typically, yeah, it'll be in congested fixtures. If we're off the next day, we definitely do. If we're in, then there's more space to be flexible with it.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the most interesting questions for me is how did the players react to this? Because at some point you had to give the message across that after however many minutes in what must have been a very competitive, intense, highly loaded game, you're now going to go and do some gym
Yeah,
loading. So
yeah. In the
what was
beginning, it wasn't. yeah, well received. To be honest,
Okay.
it did take some multiple times going into the changing room and pulling guys. Come on, guys, let's do it. Let's do it. Uh, but when we first started it, we had so now we have a purpose-built gym within our stadium
Okay.
that helps facilitate and make life a lot easier. Whereas before it was okay having a couple of kettlebells, some sliders for some eccentric work, and a K box for very low reduced playing minutes. But now we have a purpose-built gym, so to and from the changing room, pulling guys out, but it's more normalized now.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for so long, and the input is our preseason followed from week one, 45 minutes, 60, 75, 90. It's just a stepwise progression.
Hmm.
But even after that 45 minutes, it's we train really hard, and even after our football conditioning days, we then do a gym session as well. So directly after, so the full process of keeping those high days high and your low days low. So even on training days when we're training hard and we're pushing the boundaries, the guys will come in and do gym. So after playing 45 minutes, setting that foundation to say, okay, now come in, start do some work. It starts to become normal. So you've had 9 weeks of doing that before your congested fixture weeks start,
Yeah.
and then it's just autonomous.
Yeah.
And of course you're going to get some resistance because if someone's played a terrible game, mentally they're not in the right place for it, and skipping a session every here and there is not a problem. But
Yeah.
if you're repeatedly and you've got an injury history, it's like it warrants more of a conversation. Say, listen, this is the reason why. Again, we want to increase that robustness from you because availability or X, Y, Z, just to be able to get them back in.
Yeah. So you mentioned there about you now have a purpose-built gym and then some kind of kit that you might take with you. So I'm thinking more when you're on the road, when you're away, or even when you're away with the Champions League in a different country. What's the approach then? Is it a right? We'll grab the kit that we think we need, stick that on the bus, plane, whatever, and take
Yeah.
it with you.
Now, away games domestically, we'll always take a little
Yeah.
gym kit. So whether that's a couple of kettlebells, slant boards, and little bits of materials, but it's not mandatory for us that you have to do it on your away games.
Okay.
Um, because then logistically it becomes a little bit more challenging. Personnel, staff traveling two games isn't always two S&C or performance coaches going, so it does become a little bit more challenging in this sense. But home games is when we do it. So yeah, you can still get a stimulus say once every 7-8 days, but if you play an away game or two away games, then okay. So it's not every single time that then breaks up the bit of the monotony as well. So it comes back in waves, which I also like, rather than it's just every week you're trying to
Yeah.
sometimes fight with a couple of guys that had a bad game to get them in, and you're disappointing someone every week. So the fact that it does come in waves is somewhat a little bit nicer as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you don't always want to be the bad guy dragging people into
Yeah.
the gym when they've had a rubbish game. So yeah, that I get that.
No, no, but it's been like that because sometimes even if we look after our training games, training sessions, okay, get you into the gym. But if you've had a heavy, intense session on the field, yes, sometimes the last thing you want to do is still go into the gym. So I'd go into the changing room, rally up the guys. But then I also felt like, yeah, the changing room is a bit of a sacred place. Like, I don't want to always be going into entering your home and, you know, demanding something for you. So it's okay, listen, we have gym. When you're ready, you come. I ask once, and then that's it. So, give them the respect and the space that they need to them to come in and do the gym session when they see fit. Because we do it directly after the training session. So try come to replicate what's going to happen within on that game situation as well.
Yeah,
So really increase the density through the tissue to get somewhat greater adaptations.
yeah, yeah. So I suppose then to kind of brings us to the final bit, which is kind of anybody that's listening that's read the paper that has maybe been thinking about this and then starting to hear, well, if people in some of the bigger clubs are trying it, I'd like to give it a go. What are your practical suggestions for practitioners to try and implement something like this?
Yeah, it's going to depend on, firstly budget to be able to determine how much you can individualize what you're doing. So yeah, from our profiling sessions, we're fortunate enough to have the force frame, null board, force plate, the full package. So if we look at the hamstring profiling, for example, that's within the paper, that will profile your long lever hamstring strength. We'll program your Nordic hamstring strength. We'll plot that on the quadrant to see whether you're isometrically weak, eccentrically weak, through to isometrically strong, eccentrically strong. Depending on where you sit within that quadrant, then you'll have specific exercises which are tailored towards you to help increase the capacity and the robustness of that tissue. So if you've got that, then okay, players buy into something which is a bit more personalized, whereas as a blanket approach, you can kind of lose players a little bit more. So yeah, why have I got to do this? Because you know, uh, he weighs 50 kilos and he's doing the same weight as me and he's 90 kilos, So the more you can individualize, the better, and the more the players will buy into it because it's more relative to them. That's a key thing. But the number one thing for me is the why. Really explaining the why to the players to ensure they understand why they're going to do it. Because if you say, okay, this is it, because you get questions all the time. We had to, was it 16 of our youth players training with us for the last 4.5 weeks during our pre-season, and it's relatively new to them, but we brought them into our program. So after for your first 45 minutes, we do a little bit, we stepwise progress, and yeah, a lot of them are curious, and yeah, okay, why? So explaining that to them one time, and then it was just a given. So it was throughout really good attendance, really good adherence, and hopefully some really good adaptations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because
So,
ultimately it comes down to two things. Is one is its effects on performance. Does it help or hinder recovery? And probably the biggest one is our injury burden.
mm,
So we found within our environment, okay, if we're doing this post match lift and our injury results are going sky through the roof, okay, something we then need to reconsider. Is this having negative implications on our processes? But season on season, we've seen, with the implementation of this, and of course, it's not only due to this, there's more contextual factors, but we've seen our injury rates decline,
yes.
uh, and we've seen our availability go up. So and the amount of not only just the injury result going down, uh, time loss has also significantly reduced. So we yeah, let's just say 2.5 seasons, we had a few uh, tendon related hamstring issues, but now we've seen those somewhat disappear.
Mm.
So is that a byproduct of what we're doing, where we're spending more time in long lever positions, which are getting more tendon compliance and adaptations? Yeah, it could well be.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, makes perfect sense, like we sort of discussed, it's a really interesting area, and it's quite innovative. I think, like we called it controversial at the start of the chat, and it is somewhat, but when you
Yeah,
explain and you get your head into the kind of the rationale and the physiology, maybe it's not as controversial as we once thought. So
yeah, yeah. Because listen, yeah, of course, the game is tough. You know, mechanical damage is going to happen. CK results are going to be elevated. Um, are they going to be significantly more elevated as a result of doing this? We are yet to know.
yeah,
Um, but following that time recovery pathway, so we'll measure CK post game anyway to see who's elevated, who's unelevated. So even looking at your control v non-control, looking at your CK results, and does it have, what kind of implications does it have on performance, is going to be really, really interesting. So that's going on in the background.
yeah.
So yeah, there's really, really interesting things that could hopefully come out in the future, which supports some of the things that we're doing now.
Amazing. Watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space. I have
Um,
to write something else.
Yeah, Jermaine, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, it's been such an interesting article, interesting chat. Really great to chat to you as well and hear about your career. And yeah, we look forward to seeing what comes, what kind of further developments there are from this
Yeah.
area with you.
And listen, I'm hopeful that, you know, off the back of this, something else can be produced, not only from
Yeah,
our own environment. You know, it'd be great that, okay, the reach for this paper can be widespread, that, you know, someone starts to pick something up and roll with it a little bit more. So yeah, I'm also very curious about this space, because the more we can develop with it, you know, its practical feasibility for us is, you know, fantastic. So yeah, I'm very curious to watch this space as well as being involved in it. Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much, Jermaine.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it.